All right, example one, a recipe says that 2 cups of dry rice will serve 6 people. Now, if C represents cups of rice and P represents the number of people, write an equation that relates C and P. Okay, guys, I want you to think back to the meters and centimeters problems that we did. Remember this? Right? Remember this? Okay. And by writing the table in 2 different ways, we had 2 different equations. So the first way we wrote the table was on the left side, there was meters, and we were multiplying times 100 in the table to find the amount of centimeters that would equal. So like 1 meter was equal to 100 centimeters. Okay, if I had 0.94 meters, a little bit less than 1 meter, I had 94 centimeters, and so on. But this was the equation for the table when meters were on the left side and centimeters were on the right side. Now, what we did was we took that same table and we reversed the order. So now centimeters are on the left and meters are on the right. It's the same situation. Yeah, we use some different numbers, but it's the same situation. And now our equation is x is equal to it's equal to 0.01 y. In other words, to get the number of meters, you take the centimeters amount and you multiply that by 0.01. So 250 times 0.01, that's 2.50. Okay, 123.9 times 0.01, that's 1.239. Okay, so we're going from centimeters to meters. All right, so point is, every situation you can reverse the order of what it is that you're figuring out in the table, and that's going to get you a different equation. So here we have our situation in example one. There's rice versus the number of people. Which one do we put on the X side? Which one do we put on the right side? Doesn't matter, right? So since it doesn't matter, let's just go with the order that they show up in the story, okay? So since they told us that C represents the amount of cups of rice, and they said P represents the number of people in that order, I'm going to put C on the left and P on the right, okay? Now they also told us that 2 cups of rice serves 6 people, okay? Now, in order to fill out the rest of the table, okay, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to take my Y number, and I'm going to need to make a ratio out of that. I'm sorry, a rate out of that. And we're going to find the unit rate to fill out the rest of the table. So whenever you find unit rate, you always divide by the bottom number. 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. Okay. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. So what that means is that 3 people can be served by 1 cup of rice. Okay, so in other words, you're going to be multiplying times 3. Okay, now there's another way that you could figure that out, and it's the same thing. Okay, but what we're doing is we're going to take our constant of proportionality, because everything in the table is going to be multiplied times 3. Okay, that would be the rule. Whatever our x values are, we could multiply it times 3 and we'd figure out how many people that would feed. So you're going to take that constant of proportionality and multiply it by your x number. So 3 is your constant of proportionality. Multiply it by whatever your x number is. In this case, x is the number of cups. So actually, let's just use C. So 3 times the number of cups is going to give you the number of people on the other side of the table. So that would be equal to that, right? So let's test it out. If I had 3 cups of rice, 3 times 3 would feed 9 people. Okay, if I had 4 cups of rice, 4 times 3 would feed 12 people. If I want to know for just 1 cup of rice, well, we already figured that one out, but 1 times 3 is going to give us 3, and it would be the same thing. And that's all this is just saying. 3 times the number of cups is the number of people being fed. Okay, let's go ahead and look at another situation, okay? All right, our goal is to write an equation that relates those 2 letters. So we're going to do this with a different scenario. Example 2, it took a plane 1.5 hours to fly 915 miles. Now, if D represents the distance that the plane flies at this speed for T hours, write an equation that represents T and D. So once again, what order do we put it in? I'm just going to put it in the order that it appeared in the story. 1.5 hours showed up first. They told us to use the letter T to represent hours. Why didn't they use H? I don't know. Maybe T stands for time, right? And then for the distance that they flew, they used the letter D. Okay, there's T and D. Okay, for time, it was 1.5 hours. So I'm going to put 1.5 right there for the time in hours. And then for distance, 915 miles. Okay, now we need to figure out what is the unit rate, aka the constant of proportionality, so we could use that to fill out the rest of the table. Okay, so the way that we do is just like we always do. We take your y value, 915 miles. We take our x value, 1.5 hours. Okay, and to find the unit rate, you always divide by the bottom number. So divided by 1.5. The reason why we do that is because unit rate is like if we wanted just 1 hour of travel, how much would that give us? So if you divide any number to itself, then you're going to get 1. But 9.15 divided by 1.5, what's that going to give us? And now you could solve this however you want to solve it. I'm going to use a calculator to kind of speed it up. So 915 divided by 1.5 is equal to 610. Okay, so there we have that the plane was traveling 610 miles in just 1 hour. Okay, so that is our constant of proportionality, aka our unit rate. This is what we're going to multiply everything by to figure out the rest of the values in the table. So we multiply it times 610. Okay, so times 610 times 610 times 610. This is your constant of proportionality. Okay, now if you want to write your equation, you're just basically going to be multiplying the number on the x side times that unit rate. So right here, 610 times your x, the thing on that side would be time, so that's going to be times the t, and that's going to equal the thing on the y side, so your distance. All right, so let's test that out and let's show how that would work, okay? Let's say I was traveling for 2 hours. Then 2 times 610 would equal 1,220 miles, okay? 1,220 miles. If I was traveling for 5 hours, then that would be 5 times 610. What would that give me? I don't want to do that in my head. I don't want to get that wrong. So let's just multiply it the safe way. We could do it by hand also, but I want to show you guys. That's going to be 3,050 miles, okay? So that would be 3,050 miles, okay? And we don't even have to fill out the last one, but that's basically how it works, okay? 1.5 times 610, that's what gave us 915. Figure that out in this way, but this is our equation. That's our goal, okay? Remember, the constant of proportionality goes with the letter on the x side, and then you multiply those together to equal the category on the y side, right? Okay, let's do another one. After 2 hours, 4 inches of snow has fallen. We're going to write an equation that gives the amount of snow in I inches that has fallen after H hours. What order do we go in? They reversed it on us. They did it 2 different ways. First, they put hours in front and then inches, and then they put inches in front of hours. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go with this one because this is the first thing that we saw. So what letter do we use for hours? H, cool. All right. For inches, what did they tell us to use? They told us to use I, right? So hours, or H, hours, I, inches. I can go with that. All right. Okay, now just like in the story, they told us that the snow was falling for 2 hours. In the story, they told us that that was 4 inches of snow. We want to find the constant of proportionality. So we're going to take our Y value, just like we did last time. Divide that by our X value, okay? To find the unit rate, you're going to divide by the bottom number, which is always going to be X. So 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, okay? 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And here's what that's saying, okay? 2 inches of snow fell in 1 hour, okay? Because remember, Y stands for inches, X stands for hours. Okay, so now we have our constant of proportionality, 2 over 1. That's just 2 divided by 1, which is just 2. And we're going to multiply the number of hours times 2 to find the amount of inches of snow that's fallen. Okay? So it's not called the constant of proportionality for nothing. We're just going to multiply times 2, times 2, times 2. Got some hot rods outside. I don't know if you could hear that in the background. But anyways, as for your equation, okay, again, you're going to take your constant of proportionality. In this case, it was 2. And you're going to put that with the letter on the x side. In this case, it was hours. 2 times your hours is going to equal the number of the letter on the y side was inches, was I for inches. So 2 times the number of hours is equal to I, okay? And just one last time so that way you guys can see how it works, okay? So if I have 3 hours of snowing, that's going to be 3 times 2. And oops, it's going to be 3 times 2. And that's going to give me 6 inches of snow. If it snowed for 7 hours, that would be 7 times 2, and that would be 14 inches. That's what the equation says, okay? If it snowed for, let's say that h was 10. Let's say h was 10. So that would be 10 times 2 would be 20. My bad. Sorry. If the hours was 10, that would be 10 times 2, and that would be 20 inches of snow. Again, this is what your equation is. That's what they were asking us to do, and that relates the hours to the inches.